Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDnet for your free $5 to invest. Start investing and networking on public.com.
Hello, everyone. Good morning and welcome to Grid Live Pre-Race. I'm Kobe Lambert from the Put and Finish. With me is Joshua Burch and Matthew Bro. And before we get started today, want to give a big thank you to our awesome Patreon supporters, Colin, Mark, Deshelle, and Robin. We really appreciate you for keeping us on the air, bringing everyone content and doing what we love. And we definitely encourage all of our viewers to invest in the Grid Network too. Link in the video description. And last night, we previewed the Bathurst 1000. Got our own Adam Limmeries, who was on the show with me, saying happy Bathurst 1000 Day. Wishing you the same as well, Adam. You can see the link to our pre-race show in the video description as well. Today we have Formula One at Suzuka and NASCAR Cup Series at the Charlotte ROVAL, plus the latest F1 silly season news that dropped while we were on the air last night covering Bathurst. NASCAR and the RTA are also at odds, but we're going to start off with Formula One at the land of the rising sun. It's a second attempt for Max Verstappen to wrap up the F1 World Championship. He's going to be starting on the pole for the Japanese Grand Prix. Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz, and Sergio Perez are your top four. If Verstappen wins and gets the fastest lap, he'll be the 2022 Formula One World Champion. Josh, is there any chance that Charles Leclerc can beat Max Verstappen at Suzuka?
The rain that is predicted to come tomorrow is always going to be the great equalizer. And we've seen recently as well, especially last time out at Singapore, that this Red Bull doesn't always work well with Max Verstappen in the wet. Now, that's not to say that Max Verstappen can't race in the wet, because we've seen legendary performances from him over the years, most notably, of course, Brazil 2016. But in this new generation of car, Max is definitely hoping it's going to be a dry day tomorrow. We saw back in Monaco and in Singapore, wet circuits, the Red Bull is really good, but in the hands of Sergio Perez, Max was always struggling with the car. But he's got pole position, so he's going to lead off the line. He's going to be hoping it's a dry start to the Grand Prix, followed then by a wet intermediate stage as well, about halfway through. But hopefully it should be a good one. Leclerc, I would love him to take the race victory, but on a personal note as well, considering that at the United States Grand Prix, I'm not going to have Megan Burch or Ian Burch alongside me in the commentary box due to they've got a prior engagement as well. Then I'm really hoping Max can wrap it up tomorrow as well. And to be fair, it's looking likely, because if we say that Leclerc's going to win, Ferrari will probably come up with some strategy to make it not. But the Ferrari have been quick this weekend, but they have yet to show me that they've got intermediate pace as well. Surprisingly, my pick as well could be Fernando Alonso to beat everybody tomorrow. He was the quickest in the wet conditions we had on Friday morning, and I don't see Charles Leclerc matching him on that pace. And I even think Verstappen was struggling a little bit as well in the worst of the conditions we had on Friday morning.
And I'm actually happy you brought up Fernando Alonso, Josh, because that really transitions well into what we're going to talk about next. Yeah, when we're looking at the rest of the top 8 qualifiers, Esteban Ocon and Alpine, Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes, Fernando Alonso, another Alpine, and George Russell, the other Mercedes. Alpine's looking really strong this weekend. And in your opinion, can Alpine finish ahead of one or both Mercedes? Is this a sign of Alpine stepping up or Mercedes just falling down a little bit?
Well, they really had a low point, didn't they, at Singapore? Both cars retiring due to engine failure as well. And they want to send Alonso off to Aston Martin with some good memories, of course. This is the same team that gave him 2 world championships in 05 and 06. It's the same Enstone team. And I think, yes, they are on the up as well. They are now got their teeth gritted as well, ready, because they're in a mega constructors title fight as well with McLaren. McLaren was able to leapfrog them last time out. But this weekend, McLaren have slightly been further back compared to the Alpine. So it's that natural to and fro we've been seeing throughout the season as well for the two teams. But this weekend, yes, I think Alpine and definitely Alonso can finish ahead of both Hamilton and Russell as well. A perfect qualifying for them in key positions as well. At one point, Ocon was second on the grid as well. So that was even more fantastic. And I certainly see as well, if rain does play a factor tomorrow, we could either see Ocon or more probably Alonso taking a race win. I'm seriously putting my bets on Alpine doing incredibly well this weekend. They've had the best of the cars in both dry and wet conditions. So they are definitely ones to watch. They've been quicker than both the Red Bulls and Ferraris in both conditions. So I'm impressed with them. And I think they're at this circuit where it's hard to overtake normally, just one DRS zone as well. If they can time the pit stops right in the race, whether it's dry to wets or wets to dries, they've got the best cars. They could lead the way and pretty much hold the advantage in the race.
I have to agree with you, Josh. We can't put it past Alpine, especially if it rains. I was watching that practice session when Fernando Alonso was at the top. Fernando constantly reminded us why he is one of the F1 greats, although he hasn't really been in a car capable of winning for a long time now. But if it rains, I think that'll be the great equalizer in the race at Suzuka, and we'll see what the weather holds. But if it rains, I'm sure Fernando Alonso is going to be really happy. I'm sure Alpine's really doing their rain dance, because otherwise it might be another Max Verstappen cakewalk, and he'll end up wrapping up the F1 World Championship in the land of the rising sun. And around 8 p.m. Eastern time last night, 2 Formula One seats for 2023 got confirmed. Pierre Gasly is going to be going to Alpine to join his fellow Frenchman Esteban Ocon. Less than 10 minutes later, AlphaTauri announced that Nyck de Vries, the Formula E world champion, is going to be replacing Gasly after signing a multi-year deal. And this has several implications in regards to silly season. Mick Schumacher's running out of options. Daniel Ricciardo looks to be out of Formula One in 2023 as rumors swirl of him becoming the Mercedes reserve driver. Also, you have American Formula 2 driver Logan Sargent is rumored to be a contender for the Williams F1 seat. I know a lot of Americans have been asking for the longest time to have an American F1 driver. Unfortunately, Colton Herta ran out of luck there. He's going to be returning to the IndyCar Series in 2023, but it looks like Logan Sargent might finally be that answer that many American F1 fans have been hoping for the longest time. Josh, in your opinion, who were the biggest winners and losers after the latest silly season news of Gasly to Alpine and de Vries to AlphaTauri?
I think both of them are the biggest winners as well. They've got the best of the conditions, because we've had the strange situation where Vettel retiring triggered everything. We had Vettel retiring, Alonso going the next day to replace him there as well. And then we had the whole drama with Piastri. He's gone over to McLaren. Many will say, well, he's had the best because he's going to a team that can win races. But I think what we've got here is a very strong lineup. We've got Gasly and Ocon together at Alpine as well. They do get on, but they do have a rivalry on and off the track as well. They're all smiles to begin with, but trust me, that'll be fireworks next year. They're both going to push each other as hard as they possibly can. So that's fantastic to see. Nyck de Vries, everybody agreed he should have had an F1 seat long before this as well. Hazel Southwell, I mean, actually talking as well, she said as well that after what Nyck did in the Formula 3 season this weekend as well, this season, I should say, he doesn't really have the best opportunity to come into Formula One now because he was crashing a lot in the season for Formula E. He was having a lot of mistakes, but that for me got all put to bed as soon as we saw his performance in a Williams at Monza. That is to me saying yes, he is deserving an F1 seat, and I'm glad he's finally got there. as well in AlphaTauri, a very strong team. He'll go to the so-called France Tost finishing school, where he'll teach them all how to be an F1 driver, how to deal with the pressure, how to deal with the cars, and how to take criticism as well, mainly, which is something that Vries has had in the past, but hasn't had the opportunity to really take on board quite a lot. So I'm looking forward to that lineup. Gasly finally getting out of the Red Bull system as well, that have treated him absolutely horribly. Chef's kiss, love that. In terms of Mick Schumacher, the one advantage of being on a night race here is that everything is done during the night, and then during the day you find out more information. I've been busy on this weekend, just as I was in Australia, the last night race we had here in the UK. So from what I understand about Mick Schumacher, he's going to sign a 1-year contract extension with Haas for 2023, and then he'll leave Haas at the end of next season. He will then go to Sauber, which is currently called Alfa Romeo, but they will leave at the end of 2023. So he'll go to Sauber for 24 and 25, and then he'll become the factory Audi sport driver as well when they come in 2026 as a German, sort of to line that up as well. And of course, Audi and the Schumachers do actually go back a long way as well, the same as Mercedes and Schumacher. So there's a nice tie there as well. So that's my understanding of what Mick Schumacher's career plans are. For Daniel Ricciardo, it was confirmed by Philip Horton as well earlier on, as he spoke to Daniel in the pen, and Daniel said to him, I'm not driving in 2023 at all. So Danny's not going to be on the F1 grid next year. The rumor mill is still circulating that he's going to become Mercedes' new reserve driver because Nyck de Vries are going to AlphaTauri. So Danny Ricciardo will take over the third driver role at Mercedes, ready for a full-time seat in 2024 when it's rumored Lewis Hamilton will hang up his boots. But Hamilton recently has said, I've got another 5-6 years left in me yet. So there's a lot of confusion there about where he's actually going to go. But for certain at the moment, Ricciardo is in a seat for 2024. We just don't know if that's in a Williams or it's in a Mercedes or even an Aston Martin with the Mercedes powertrain cars. But Ricciardo at the moment, we're told, does have a seat for 24, not for 23. And that because he doesn't have a seat in 23 because at Williams, now that De Vries isn't going to take the seat alongside Albon, now that Latifi's been booted out, it is going to be my understanding that Logan Sargent will be in that car next season as well from Formula 2. So America will have an F1 driver on the grid, and a pretty darn good one as well in Logan Sargent, a fantastic talent, and it looks like he'll be lining up alongside Alexander Albon in 2023. So we've got to have it confirmed, but from what I understand, it's about a 90% done deal that Mick will stay at Haas, Ricciardo will go to Mercedes as third driver, and Logan Sargent will be at Williams next season. So there you go. There's the 2023 grid.
Yes, as I said, it'll be really exciting for a lot of American F1 fans to finally get an American driver on the grid. And if that happens, Logan Sargent should be really proud of himself because he'll be able to do something that not many Americans have done, because it's nearly impossible for an American to make it in Formula One and to say that I'm one of the few American drivers to be able to race here full time. That would be a massive accomplishment for Logan Sargent. And in regards to Daniel Ricciardo, looks like he may be a reserve driver at Mercedes in 2023, and our own Adam Limmery says that he'd like to see Daniel Ricciardo race an IndyCar in 2023. So Josh, wanted to ask you, what do you think the chances are that we could see Daniel Ricciardo make a start in the IndyCar Series? I know he's not really keen to racing on the oval tracks, and he seems like he's still, the fire is burning for him to be in Formula One. So I'm not sure if IndyCar would be an attractive option for Daniel Ricciardo, at least at this stage in his career.
Yeah, maybe not this stage of the career as a permanent drive, but if F1 and Mercedes are pretty wise, they should probably ask McLaren as well, who is, of course, McLaren Mercedes power unit trains, and Ricciardo will become a Mercedes driver, and McLaren and Ricciardo are still driving together. So in my book, it would be a very smart tie-up to put Danny Ricciardo as another entry into the Indy 500 if that could happen. Maybe Montoya slips away and doesn't do it again, and Ricciardo comes in just to drum up the connectivity between IndyCar and Formula One that's been going around as well. I'd personally love to see that as well. But realistically, I can see Ricciardo taking maybe a road course next year if he does want to do IndyCar, just to make sure he's match fit ready. He'll do the odd practice sessions as well for Mercedes next season. But realistically, I can see him doing a bit of NASCAR and doing the Project 91 on a one-off race. And probably, knowing Daniel Ricciardo, he'll want to do it somewhere like Daytona. just because of that connection he's got with Dale Earnhardt. I can't see why he wouldn't do it and do it at a legendary track where Dale won at. So you guys are more familiar with the NASCAR territory than me. You can discuss amongst yourselves where you think which track you'll choose, but definitely I see Danny Rick going over for a NASCAR race. It's too tempting for him not to. He loves it. His favorite film is Talladega Nights. He loves Dale Earnhardt as well. He loves NASCAR. His race number is 3 because of Dale Earnhardt. So he's got a year off. He's going to go stateside and he's going to go wrecking some NASCAR. It's going to be brilliant.
Yeah, I totally agree, Josh. I think the chances of Daniel Ricciardo racing a NASCAR race next year for Project 91 is definitely much higher than seeing him in an IndyCar. Yeah, it would be great to see Daniel Ricciardo in the Indy 500, but I keep thinking back to his comments about oval racing and how hesitant he is. So I would actually be really surprised if we saw Daniel Ricciardo race on an oval, but never say never. Didn't Roman Grosjean say he'd never go oval racing because it was too dangerous? Then he got over here, saw how great the IndyCar racing was, and then he's like, I want to try ovals too. So Daniel Ricciardo's opinion could change as well, and that's also why I can't see him in the Daytona 500 right now, because of his fears about oval, especially with all the safety concerns that we're going to talk about once again with this next gen car, especially on a super speedway where they have pack racing, the big one, those, and sometimes really scary crashes. That might scare Daniel Ricciardo away. But if I had to make a prediction right now, I'd say we're going to see him race for Project 91 at Circuit de Americas. It's a track he knows from Formula One. I think that's a track that would probably make the most sense here, and we'll definitely keep an eye out for Daniel Ricciardo's 2023 racing plans. I'm sure a lot of NASCAR fans are hoping that it's going to involve Trackhouse, Justin Marks, and Project 91 and get back to Formula One in Japan. We know always when you come here during this time of year, there's a possibility of rain. I know we already talked about how Alpine, Fernando Alonso, Esteban Ocon are going to be doing a rain dance, because that would certainly increase their chances of pulling off a surprise victory. So besides the Alpine drivers, which other driver do you think the rain could help the most?
Well, I'm just having a look at my weather forecast as well for the rain at Suzuka that we've got here at the track, and sunrise at 5:54, and rain is predicted at 2:00 precisely as well, and that is due to last until sunset, and that is the exact start time as the race as well. So we could have rain coming down on the parade lap, so it's jolly exciting. If it does rain, who could have the best race? Definitely Alonso, as we discussed about as well. I think Lewis Hamilton will also have a great advantage as well if it rains, because he can control the car a lot easier at this circuit. We saw he was having a lot of fun in the wet Friday we had here. Russell too thrown into the mix as well. Perez obviously is going to be going quite well. I think Leclerc will drop back as well. He didn't have a great start at Singapore when it was a intermediate start as well. So definitely watch out for the Red Bulls, but keep your eyes on the Alpines. They're going to be mega strong. And also, Lando Norris qualified in 10th position today. That came up incredibly well. Well done, whoever did that. That came up incredibly on time. Yeah, Lando Norris qualified 10th as well after some strong pace as well to get into Q3. We understand that he might have just tweaked something as well for a more wet setup tomorrow that you're allowed to do in Parc Ferme as well. So that's why Lando was off the pace in Q3. He's set up ready for a wet race as well. So McLaren obviously knows something we don't. There's a 40% chance of rain when the lights go out. It's increasing hour on hour as well. I was told that the long range weather forecast is also saying that there's going to be a lot of heavy rain around about 30 minutes into the Grand Prix. That's around about lap 15. So we're going to be in for an absolute cracker as well. So well worth the early get up if you're over here in Europe, and well worth a late night if you're over there in America.
Yeah, it'll definitely be well worth stand up late to see the Japanese Grand Prix, and at the same time, it'll be going on as actually, this race is going to start towards the end of the Bathurst 1000, so there'll be a lot of racing to watch tonight. If you're up early in the morning in Europe, or late tonight like I am, going to be on the East Coast in the United States of America. And one driver that I'm going to be watching is Sebastian Vettel, who ended up qualifying in the top 10 his final scheduled race at Suzuka. Vettel really loves this track. Earlier in the week, he said he'd be willing to come out of retirement to have another shot to drive this track at Suzuka if a driver cannot race for whatever reason in the future. Josh, could Sebastian Vettel be a threat for a podium if the rain arrives?
I think Sebastian Vettel should be always considered a threat in wet weather conditions as well. But with that Aston Martin, it's going to be a big old risk, isn't it, as well? But I think starting P9 on the grid, he loves this track as well. He's a 5-time pole sitter here, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 19 as well. Off the top of my head, is the times he started on pole position here. So he is going to be good. Into the top 9, gave a little wave to the fans when he came in as well after his last flying lap here in qualifying trim. So yeah, I think he will come back eventually for this track. He might even come back for another season because it's that itch you get to race. But tomorrow, if it rains, yeah, he'll be up there. I mean, Stroll got a podium in wet weather before as well, so anything's a possibility. And I think, or with the Mercedes power unit behind you as well, anything is possible as well, because it's not the engine that's the problem, it's the aero that's affecting Mercedes. Aston Martin, a completely different car, and they've still got a good package. Look at what Williams do as well with the Mercedes engine as well. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow's race. But on what you said about if Vettel would ever stand in again, if anybody was ill, I think Sebastian Vettel should be monitored a little bit, because I think he's going around with used COVID tests, just putting them into drivers' drinks and making sure they drink them as well so that he gets another seat in the car for next season. Sebastian is starting to look like a driver who might be regretting his decision a little bit, because in all my time commentating on him, I've done every single one of his races. I have never once seen him in the middle of a qualifying session waving to the fans and talking over the radio and sounding emotional like that as well. Is like it's a goodbye. No, this is a man who knows he's coming to the end of his F1 career, but he will still be in F1. And I've always said it. I think he's going to be either the new Grand Prix Drivers Association president, or he's going to take a role with the FIA and either become a steward or race director. Because I think Sebastian as a race director makes a lot of sense, or even assistant to the race director. Sebastian has got such a logical mind. It'd be wasted in retirement. There's a job waiting for him. He's still only young, for goodness sake. What is he, 35 years old? He's very young, extremely young. So there's another job for him. Then again, he is worth what? About 40 billion now. I've got no idea how much it is. It's worth a lot of money for the championships. But yeah, I think Seb's going to be one to watch tomorrow for the podium chances as well.
Yeah, it is really crazy, that we're going to be coming to the end of Sebastian Vettel's Formula One career soon. Accomplished so much, he'll go down in history as one of the greatest Formula One drivers of all time. And while he may not be driving a Formula One car anymore after 2022, there'll be a lot for Sebastian Vettel to do. A lot of opportunity for him. I have a feeling we're still going to see him hanging around the paddock week in and week out. He probably won't be going to Saudi Arabia though.
No. We don't even want to go to Saudi Arabia, so I don't know why everybody wants to queue there to get in. There's several races I'd drop on the F1 calendar for next season, as I discussed on this program once before. But Saudi Arabia, definitely a no-go.
Yeah, and if Sebastian Vettel ever gets the itch to come race, Ray Hall let him in Lanigan race. I wonder the open invite is still there for him to come do an IndyCar one-off race at Road America or a test. Can't do it right now because they're busy repaving the track for next year. But by the time IndyCar race date roll around in 2023, hey Sebastian, I think you should give Bobby Ray Hall a call, Graham Ray Hall, try to put you in a seat at Road America. I'm sure the IndyCar fans would really love to see him compete in the United States. And Josh, understand it's almost time for you to get going now. So we're gonna do your pick of winners for the Japanese Grand Prix. You can take a shot at the Charlotte ROVAL as well. And if you're really feeling lucky, how about give us your Bathurst 1000 winner?
Oof. Shane Van Gisbergen. That's I'm going for the Bathurst 1000. He can't not. Scotty, is Scotty Mack over there? Has he managed to get over there in time for the Bathurst 1000?
I have no idea if Scott McLaughlin's there on the commentary team. I think he's gonna be a part of the commentary team later this season. I don't know if it's for the Bathurst 1000 though, but unfortunately he wasn't able to get a race seat. Would be really nice to see Scott McLaughlin back. I'm sure he's gonna be back in the Bathurst 1000 at some point, someday in the future. But yeah, definitely Shane Van Gisbergen and Garth Tander. That's a great pick.
Yeah, the Garth Tander as well is one of the greatest drivers I've ever seen. It not just as well in V8 supercars as well, or just the supercars it is now, but overall he's got such a talent as well to pin the car in the correct position. I remember Murray Walker actually once saying about how Garth Tander was almost Senna-esque in the way he was able to drift the car to the inside to make an overtake at Adelaide Hairpin one year as well. So yeah, definitely a good pick there. I'm glad about that. Formula One race win, Max Verstappen. It's going to have to. But my heart is also saying Fernando Alonso quite a lot. So, but logically speaking, it'll probably be Max Verstappen as well. He's going for that record. For the Roval, I should know because I'm commentating on it as well. Let's go Kyle Busch. I'll go with Kyle. He's had a few troubled weekends, isn't he, as well, in the past couple of races in re-enter the playoffs. So yeah, I'll go with him to take a victory here today. Tomorrow as well. And finally, as well, I've had to put my glasses on because I've been up so long, my eyes started to dry out as well as I'm looking at the camera lens because there's a light under me as well. I just want to say as well, for the Japanese Grand Prix tomorrow as well, we are in for an absolute treat. So you do not want to miss it. If you're in Europe watching this as well, set as many alarms as you can. If you're over in America watching it and you just finished the Bathurst 1000, get all the coffees you possibly can. Trust me, a wet Japanese Grand Prix is going to be the race of the year. We're going to decide a championship tomorrow as well. Do not miss it. You've got to watch the Japanese Grand Prix live. Don't care what you're doing, where you are. There's technology at your fingertips. Watch the Japanese Grand Prix.
Yeah, really looking forward to watching the Japanese Grand Prix alongside the Bathurst 1000. Going to be an excellent night of racing. And Josh, really appreciate your F1 expertise as always. We're gonna let you head off now, and then next we're gonna bring Matthew back as we talk about the NASCAR Cup Series race at the Charlotte ROVAL. And the Charlotte ROVAL is going to be closing out the round of 12. However, only 11 of those playoff drivers will be competing this weekend. Alex Bowman is going to sit out due to concussion-like symptoms, still experiencing that. He will not advance, and Noah Gragson will be in the 48 for the second straight race. William Byron's chances of advancing have improved at the expense of Austin Cindric and Chase Briscoe after winning his appeal. The penalty for spin out Denny Hamlin at Texas under caution saw the fine increase to $100,000, but the points that were docked got restored. So Byron is now 14 points above the cut line. Daniel Suarez 12 points above and 8 on the bubble there. Briscoe and Cindric went from tied for the last spot to 12 points below. So this William Byron penalty getting overturned provided a big shakeup in the playoff picture. Matthew, does Byron winning the appeal make NASCAR missing the call at Texas look worse? Also, are you surprised by the number of teams who keep getting these penalties overturned?
Yes and yes. So, yes, absolutely. It just shows that I think NASCAR just set a precedent, right, that shows that if you spin someone out under caution, don't destroy their car, and then admit to it in the broadcast after the race, it's just change to them. I mean, we're obviously hearing a lot of change as in money, right? So obviously hearing a lot of stuff, which we'll discuss later, about NASCAR losing money as an industry. But like still $100,000 just to do this. How William Byron, Denny Hamlin could just start spinning people out into the playoffs and make it to the Final Four, spin the other three out. You can't take points away now, right? You can't just get rid of, undo, right? So you can't just undo a points penalty, but then the next person, you give them a points penalty. It just shows more inconsistency in the sport. And it does surprise me, yes, it makes NASCAR look horrible, I feel, in terms of showing that in 2022 with all these injuries, you could intentionally wreck someone under caution as long as you don't damage their car and you won't really get penalized except some money. That's really all NASCAR showing. And to answer the second question, it does kind of surprise me because correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember reading a motorsport article from like January, I believe it was, and it had something to do with NASCAR saying they're really putting the hammer down, penalizing people. And the penalties have been extreme this season. But I think those are the ones who don't get overturned. So we've seen, I believe, Brad Keselowski, Michael McDowell, and now Kevin Harvick more recently. All four drivers have had like the same penalty with 100 owners' points, 100 drivers' points, crew chief suspended. Those aren't getting overturned. But it is surprising me that a lot of the other drivers are what is happening. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I know Jeremy Clements' penalty got appealed, appealed like reverse. Was there a disqualification in, was it May? Some driver got disqualified in I can't remember. But it absolutely does surprise me, yes, Kobe, that there are a lot of these penalties for NASCAR saying that They're going to really be on the ball this year, penalizing teams, and they have been. I can't recall the last time I've seen so many penalties and how extreme these penalties are, but a lot of them are getting overturned by the appeals committee. So it's a little confusing because you never know now when a driver gets penalized what is going to happen, because we've seen Ty Gibbs get penalized multiple times this year. His penalties keep going up. None of them were reversed. And then you see something happen with like William Byron or Jeremy Clements, and then their penalties get reversed. So I guess for the fans and all this stuff, every time you see your driver get penalized, unless it's what Harvick, Keselowski, and McDowell got, probably shouldn't be as worried because they're probably going to overturn it. But yeah, it does surprise me. How do you feel about that one, Kobe?
Well, Matthew, all I gotta say is that this appeals panel is making me eat a lot of crow on this show, and I guess third time's the charm. I learned my lesson. I'm not gonna make any predictions now about whether or not I think a penalty is gonna be overturned or not, because every single time I said that there's no way that William Byron's penalty is gonna get overturned. But it's so clear as day as what he said. There's no way. And then I see it get overturned, and I'm gonna be honest, my jaw was dropped to the floor. I'm like, how? Like, what it makes me wonder, like, what were they able to say to this appeals panel to make them, go up on the fine, but restore the points that have been taken away from him. To be honest, I really don't understand it at all, because just looking at the incident that happened itself, you can see William Byron was guilty, and he basically admitted, yeah, I wanted to get payback, but I didn't mean to go that far. And I feel like that's an admission of guilt right there. That's exactly what you did. And I thought it was clear cut and dry. William Byron's penalty, no matter how hard he fight the appeal, not gonna get overturned. And to all of our surprise, here it is, William Byron's penalty get overturned. So I'd actually like to have a better understanding of the appeals process, and like what teams say in order to try to meet their case. Obviously the 24 team ended up winning their appeal there. Really surprised about that, and I'm sure William Byron is going to be a lot happier now heading into the Charlotte ROVAL, rather than nervous and needing to score all those stage points. Although he's scoring stage points will still be really nice for him, especially if things go wrong later in the race. And considering his appeal victory, I think this does make NASCAR's missing that call at Texas look even worse. What they should have done is either hold him for a lap or send him to the tail end of the longest line they let it do at your local short track. But all in all, the messy situation, we're going to have to move on from that. But something else that doesn't seem to be going away is NASCAR's current negotiations with the Race Team Alliance, the RTA, for revenue sharing. Jeff Gordon, one of the major team reps, criticized NASCAR for dragging its feet and responding to the RTA's latest proposal. They're even going as far to say that Hendrick Motorsports, one of the biggest powerhouses in all of NASCAR, is going to end up losing money. We saw drivers being very vocal leading up to Talladega about safety. They actually had a meeting with NASCAR today about that. Going to get into that in just a little bit. Now the teams are speaking out publicly, airing their grievances with NASCAR in a way that we really haven't seen before. Is NASCAR leadership starting to lose trust from the teams and drivers?
I mean, I'd assume so, right? I mean, look, if that report is obviously true, Hendrick Motorsports, which is the biggest powerhouse in all of NASCAR, I almost said all of motorsport, but that would have been an accurate statement, is losing money. Like, could you imagine all these new teams that are joining the sport? Like, I could think of like a couple Xfinity teams that are like not like mid-tier, I guess, like Jesse Owuji Motorsports along the line. Then you have newer Cup teams like Trackhouse Racing 2311. I mean, Denny Hamlin is obviously a big thing with the penalty. Like, he just keeps getting, something keeps happening to Denny Hamlin. No matter what he does, something happens. He either gets disqualified, spun out, penalized, something happens to him. He's really getting kicked in the butt by NASCAR at the current moment. But when it comes to like I'm just what I was like referencing with like these newer teams, Denny Hamlin's another guy who won't expand the business model of his Cup teams solely because of the money. And now we're seeing this. It's a prime example that all these teams are losing money. Why would you even want to expand? And then I can imagine teams like Rick Ware Racing and Spire Motorsports, what is going on with them? There's probably a reason why they're loaning their charters out just to make some money, and they're not even making a positive income at the end of the day. But to answer the question, I believe NASCAR is definitely starting to lose trust from the teams and drivers. I think a big issue had to definitely do with the safety. I mean, this is the first time in a very long time we have seen 3 drivers miss a race due to injury. We have Kurt Busch with concussion. we haven't even really gotten an update. Like, unfortunately, we used to get the updates from Kurt Busch every week around Wednesday, Thursday, see how he's doing. We haven't heard anything from Kurt Busch in a very long time, so that's unfortunate. Alex Bowman, who is very good at the Roval, I believe he's like the third best driver average at the Charlotte ROVAL. Hasn't won though, but he's out second week. Noah Gragson, I've never seen a driver. I really want someone to look up when's the last time a driver has had so many different numbers in one season, because this is technically Noah Gragson's rookie season in Cup, and he's driven the 62 to 48, and now what was the other one? 62, 48.
16.
16, thank you, 16. Yes. So I mean that's 3 numbers already, and we've had just around 30 races. So good for Noah Gragson, really getting all that experience, but he doesn't even want to drive at 100% because of the safety of these cars, which is why. And then Cody Ware's the other injured guy. I'm talking in circles. I apologize, but. Yeah, so I would say with these injuries and everything going on now, the financial situation, we're seeing NASCAR really go on a little bit of a downfall that like fans and people like commentators like us didn't really want to see. I mean, we see people and the comments of groups, oh, NASCAR is dying, whatever. I really didn't think it was, but now seeing stuff like this, that's making me a little bit worried as a fan. I mean, last week we were worried about the health of the drivers, and now this week we're worried about the health of the sport, losing so much money and everything, all the dirty laundry being aired out. So I'm not entirely sure what's going to happen. I don't think anyone, even in NASCAR, especially like Jeff Gordon, knows what's going to happen. But like I'm getting worried as both a fan who's grown up watching it, and then as a commentator who also still watches it.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of worries sometimes for NASCAR. Hopefully, they're going to get all these issues ironed out, and everybody's going to be able to happy. Teams won't be losing money. And that's what we can hope for. But we all know it's not as easy as that. So there will certainly be some tough conversations, some growing pains moving forward as NASCAR leadership tries to steer this in the right direction. And I think they're absolutely starting to lose trust from the teams and drivers. You know, that's been obvious throughout this season, but earlier this morning at Charlotte Motor Speedway, NASCAR met with the drivers, you know, to talk about the crash test that happened for next year in 2023. It was a very successful crash test with the updates to the next gen car. Yeah, so next season they're gonna make some changes to the rear bumper structure and the rear clip, and there'll also be some changes to the center clip as well to, you know, try to take away some of the G forces with these hits on the next gen car, like we saw Alex Bowman at Texas. You know, the back end just tapped the wall. You know, usually you think that was nothing, but that was a really hard hit where, you know, it was to put Alex Bowman out for 2 weeks now, missing last week's race at Talladega and this week's race at the Charlotte ROVAL, and it's really crazy to see all of these hits that don't look so bad end up taking out drivers for a longer period of time. And Matthew, you mentioned Kurt Busch. Been a long time since we've seen an update from him. Kind of worries me that we haven't heard anything from Kurt Busch. Hopefully he's doing as well as he can possibly be as he continues to recover from that concussion he suffered way back at Pocono. It seems like it's been a while now. So yeah, so in regards to safety, really good to hear that the 2023 next gen model we're gonna see some changes with that. And hopefully we won't see drivers just tapping the wall and getting concussions off of that, because considering the technology we have in 2022, that is absolutely unacceptable, and we should not be and that should not be happening at all in NASCAR competition. And all of this off the track drama occurring is taken away from the attention of what we're really supposed to be talking about right now, which is the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs. All the tire issues we've been having lately, safety discussions intensify. Now the RTA airing its dirty laundry with NASCAR. So a lot of stuff that we're talking about that has nothing to do with the playoffs at all. Could all the positive momentum NASCAR gained from a season with high parity, or some people calling one of the best seasons ever, could all of this be lost with the drama overshadowing the playoffs?
I mean, not all of it, but definitely most of it. And I want to talk, I mean, I was reading the tweet like from Bob Pockrass about the Wednesday crash test. Just to go back on that point really quick. I think that's awesome, but like you see 3 drivers really injured. Why can't we pull something like we did with the car of tomorrow and like implement it mid-season? I get there's only a few races left, yes, but if the safety is really concerning and the part is ready to go, and NASCAR clearly doesn't have the funding for it, obviously, but just in a fantasy world, right? Why wouldn't they do it immediately so we can prevent Kurt Busch, Alex Bowman. Cody Ware's a different story. That was a horrible wreck, and I'm very worried. I was very worried about Cody Ware. I still remember talking to you guys in the group me about that. But to answer your question, I think a lot of the momentum, because I was one of those firm believers. I mean, when you have a motorsport, right, that has 36 chartered entries, and if you count the exhibition races, I believe 21 of the 36 drivers have won a race this season, counting like Ryan Blaney and Brad Keselowski with all those races. How can you not say that's the greatest season that we have ever seen? We're breaking records, but unfortunately, we're breaking terrible records too, like injuries and stuff like that. But I think it definitely, the ratings are clearly going down as they were last year. Like I know Austin, is it Kaczynski? His Twitter I follow. He's a staff writer for a NASCAR website. I can't think of off the top of my head, but I follow his Twitter very closely, and he'll post the ratings and stuff like that. And it's crazy to see how far down these ratings are for the playoffs. And usually they would think it'd be very similar to what they were in previous years, when I would argue the racing was less exciting. I mean, anyone can win. We saw Tyler Reddick's won 3 races this season. If you told me that at the start of the year, I would have been like, yeah, maybe not. Ross Chastain's won 2 races. Guys that have won their first career races really taken off this season. It's truly been one of the greatest seasons for the sport in terms of the showing that anyone could really win at any time, whether it's road, which we'll talk about, obviously the Charlotte ROVALs this weekend and tomorrow and today, technically too, for the Xfinity Series. Anything can happen at these road courses too. But unfortunately, I think your question is absolutely right. I think a lot of the positive momentum that NASCAR has gained from the season, claiming on USA every commercial, the greatest season ever, I think a lot of that's going down from what we have seen arguably since Pocono. I think we had that like curve, right? Going up, and then all of a sudden Pocono, Texas, and then, yeah. So it's very unfortunate for the sport that we cover that what is happening there. And then plus the penalty, Texas was just kind of one of the last nails in the coffin, I feel, for this season. But hopefully we see some great racing and everyone's safe for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and that's the most important thing, making sure everybody else is safe for the rest of the year. And honestly, Matthew, it is such a shame that we even have to be having this discussion right now, because it's been an absolutely incredible season of racing. If you toss out all of the injuries we have, and then everything else happening with all the tires, it's been a wonderful season of parity. One of the most competitive seasons that we've ever seen in the modern era of the NASCAR Cup Series. And all we've been doing lately on our programs is talking about everything that everything that has nothing to do, with the actual on-track action itself. All of the issues we've been talking about today is super unfortunate. And for these last few races of the season, hopefully, as you said, we get some really good racing, some good storylines, some drama to talk about on our programs, and the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs can, be the top story instead of all the things that have currently gone wrong and get into the playoffs. Chase Elliott's the only driver locked in to the next round after winning at Talladega. Elliott has 2 wins at the Charlotte ROVAL, a really good track for him. Tyler Reddick has the most wins on a road course this year, winning at Road America and the IMS road course. Plus, we have non-playoff drivers and road course favorites like Michael McDowell. Front Row Motorsports has been running really strong on those road courses this season. Then you have AJ Allmendinger, always a threat when you come to the ROVAL. He's actually looking for his 4th consecutive ROVAL victory in the NASCAR Xfinity Series race, and he actually won the pole for today's Xfinity race, which you can watch at 3:30 p.m. Eastern time on NBC. Also, Chris Buescher could play spoiler as well, but Buescher is a really solid road racer too. You think we could see a scenario where another non-playoff driver wins?
100%, absolutely. From what we've seen from these playoffs, I think a lot of us were upset from a fan perspective when we saw Chase Elliott win Talladega, solely because that's the race you expect a non-playoff driver to win, and it's the only one a playoff driver has won. And we've seen in the past, like I believe last season when Bubba Wallace won Talladega, that was like one of the first times we had seen a non-playoff driver win a playoff race with these cars and stuff like that. I mean, obviously it was Gen 6, not the next gen. But then now the whole script has flipped for this season. So I find that very interesting. But yeah, Christopher Buescher is one of the best road racers in the sport for someone who has not won on a road course. And I find that very interesting. I think he could definitely get it done. The Fords, like Michael McDowell is doing well, non-playoff driver. There's guys, too, that have some of the best finishes. Martin Truex Jr. Toyotas haven't really shown up on road courses, unfortunately. It's been mainly a Chevrolet and Ford thing this season, but all those guys, and then obviously AJ Allmendinger, like, how can you not pick arguably the best road course driver in the history of NASCAR in terms of Xfinity, Truck, and Cup Series? You could argue Chase Elliott's average finish on like 18 road courses in the past 3 years is like 6th. I mean, he is phenomenal. I mean, Chase Elliott could finish last and still have like the best average finish on road courses, like finish last multiple times, right? Well, in terms of non-playoff drivers, I think if any non-playoff driver gets it done, though, there's 3 that come to my mind right now. It's either Christopher Buescher, who is great. I remember my NASCAR pick'em I do on It's a Dinger on my Instagram. My best finish ever was a road course. I can't think of which one it was, but I picked Chase Elliott, who finished first, Tyler Reddick, who I believe was second. Third place, I can't think off the top of my head. It might have been Larson, not sure. And then Christopher Buescher finished 6th. That was like my best week ever. But Christopher Buescher's phenomenal. Obviously, Tyler Reddick is dominating road courses as well. And then obviously Allmendinger. I mean, I really am an Allmendinger stan in terms of the talent and his story that has come in terms of covering him from a motorsports perspective, seeing the rise and down and then going back up, going back down. And now Allmendinger has a chance to win a second road course in the Cup Series the next year, right? So he won last year. And I think you can guarantee Allmendinger with the schedule next year as a playoff driver in the NASCAR Cup Series. And it's going to be on one of those tracks where I believe he will win. So, I mean, every non-playoff. I mean, like Josh said, I mean, Kyle Busch, he's one of those drivers I feel like could win anywhere too. So non-playoff driver wins. I feel like anyone in this field can win this race today. I truly believe any of the 30. I don't know how many. I know there's 36 charter. I don't know if there's 39 drivers. Like Connor Daly, I feel like can win this race too. So anything can happen today. But for non-playoff drivers, I would definitely go Allmendinger as my pick to win for a non-playoff driver.
Yeah, AJ Allmendinger is certainly a really good pick whenever you're coming to one of these road course races. And Grid Live Encore's Ben Snyder says that he doesn't think it's out of the question with AJ going full-time cup racing again in 2023, that there might be a possibility of him potentially making a deep playoff run, possibly even getting into the round of 8. And I that might be considered a bold prediction for college racing AJ Allmendinger in the Cup Series, but I actually think it could be a possibility. Look at all the road course races, and then we got a street course race at Chicago, and AJ Allmendinger is one of the very few. Well, he'll be one of the few Cup drivers in the field who have experience racing on a street course, while most of those drivers haven't even run one street race in their lives. So let's say AJ Allmendinger wins several road course races. AJ's also really good at the short tracks as well. So if AJ gets those extra playoff points, and we also have Bristol in the round of 16, and AJ's run really well there as too. So if AJ Allmendinger, advances out of round of 16, gets into the round of 12, you have Talladega where he can run well on the super speedway. Then you have the Charlotte ROVAL, and so if he wins the ROVAL next year, he could potentially get into the round of 8. So I think this next gen car, the way the schedule is, it really favors a driver like AJ Allmendinger potentially making a deep playoff run, and we'll certainly wait to see how that plays out, since it's still 2022. Got to finish this season first before we get to 2023. And you mentioned Connor Daly, Matthew. I don't know if Connor Daly has the equipment to get it done unless it rains. He's driving for the money team, brand new startup from the famous boxer Floyd Money Mayweather. And Connor Daly actually just had an issue in practice right now. It looks like he had a failure in his steering coming out of the backstretch chicane and ended up hitting the wall hard. Hopefully Connor's fine. It seemed like a hard impact into the wall, and as we've been talking about with safety with these next gen cars this year, a hit in the wall may not look so bad, but as we've seen with Kurt Busch, Alex Bowman been out with concussions, it can be bad. So hopefully Connor will be cleared and be able to continue racing this weekend. I know Connor's been very excited to make his NASCAR Cup Series debut at the Charlotte ROVAL. And a quick follow-up before we get into everyone's favorite game. Daniel Suarez, Kyle Larson, and Ross Chastain have all won on the road course this year. In your opinion, which one of those drivers will get the highest finish at the ROVAL?
Well, I think I can guarantee, I think all of them are going to be in the top 10. I'm not going to say Chastain. I'm going to go in like a PR order. I'm going to go reverse. I don't think it's going to be Chastain solely because with the equipment he's had at other road courses in his career, his average finish at the Roval is like 20 something, I believe. It's either 19th, but his average starts like somewhere in that realm. So I don't think it's going to be Chastain. I don't think it's going to be Suarez either. I think Suarez is going to have a good day. I really think all the playoff drivers are going to have a good day, but unfortunately we have seen the unpredictability of these races, so I don't think it's Suarez. And then Kyle Larson, who has, I believe, it's a top 5 best finish at the Roval and in road courses in NASCAR. So the last winner, obviously, to a Watkins Glen. So I think Kyle Larson will have a finish, but I wouldn't be surprised if they were both all like 5, 6, 7 or 4, 5, 6, etc. like that. So my pick for that question is I think Kyle Larson will be that. And I think Kyle Larson might be one of my 4 on my Instagram story that we see probably sometime today. So how do you feel about that one, Kobe?
Yeah. Kyle Larson been a defender and winner of the Charlotte ROVAL. Hendrick Motorsports always bring fast cars on the road course races. I'm sure Chase Elliott's gonna be a favorite as well. And right now, if things hold up the way they are with the points, looks like both Trackhouse cars might end up making it into the round of 8. I think that maybe not shock a lot of people with Ross Chastain, but probably with Daniel Suarez. Daniel Suarez is performing really well so far in the playoffs, and to be in the position that he in right now, he certainly has to be very, very excited to where things are headed. And if he gets into round 8, that's going to be a massive win for Suarez in that number 99 team. But Matthew, I think we're going to see a crazy race, and I'm actually going to predict Ross Chastain getting the highest finish at the Charlotte ROVAL. It doesn't really seem like Ross has really made any enemies as of lately. So maybe the enemies that he's already made this season will stay away and not do what Kevin Harvick did to Chase Elliott last year. Put him in the wall there, try to end his playoff hopes, and then Harvick sees Elliott in his mirror and ends up locking and hitting the DeWalt wall. We used to call that the Tom's heartburn turn. Thought that was a really cool name there, but overall, we're really looking forward to seeing what the Charlotte ROVAL brings us this year, because in its short history, we've already had several memorable moments that this race has provided. And next is going to be time for everyone's favorite game, pick a winner. Yeah, look at the leaderboard there. My lead is getting awfully small, so I'm going to need my picks to really pull out a big one for me this weekend, so I can end up winning the pick a winner championship again. Before we get into our picks, got our own Adam Limmery's right here sharing his picks for pick a winner. He thinks Max Verstappen's going to win in Formula One, and he's picking an upset in the NASCAR Cup Series at the ROVAL. Thanks Michael McDowell, Front Row Motorsports, going to get it done in Charlotte. And Matthew, we're gonna start off with Formula One. Who do you think's going to win the Japanese Grand Prix?
I mean, listening to Josh, I want to say Josh is one of the most fascinating people to listen to backstage. I mean, the incredible knowledge he has. So that's where I base a lot of my picks off, is solely just from Josh talking. Part of me really wanted to say I've been picking Mercedes drivers all season, and unfortunately that's not worked. So I am going to do something I have not done this season. I was going to go Lewis Hamilton because of the rain. I think it's going to be Max Verstappen. I'm going to finally jump on the train like I have with SVG and supercars. I'm going to pick the best driver in the sport with Max Verstappen.
Yeah, I think Max Verstappen is certainly the safe pick here, and that's why I'm going with him as well. If it rains, I'm going with Fernando Alonso and Alpine. I think Alpine has a really good setup in the rain, but guarantee that it will rain. So I'm gonna go with the safe pick. Verstappen. Think he's gonna win the race, get the fastest lap, and then he'll end up winning the championship in front of all those wonderful Japanese fans. Next, NASCAR Cup Series at the Charlotte ROVAL. Matthew, who's gonna tame this hybrid oval / road course?
See, the whole time in the car today coming home, I'm like, it's gonna be Allmendinger. I'm gonna pick Allmendinger. I'm gonna go with Chase Elliott though, because it's the hardest thing I think in motorsports to pick against Chase Elliott on a road course. I think you just can't. But unfortunately, we're going to be having this discussion post-race when Allmendinger beats Chase Elliott at the line. That's what's going to happen. But I'm going to stick with Chase Elliott. I really think any pick is a good pick for this week, though.
Yeah. I certainly think Chase Elliott is a safe bet here, but I'm actually gonna go with the surprise pick here. I know I just said I thought Ross Chastain would get the highest finish of those, but I'm actually gonna Gonna pick a fun one here. I think his teammate Daniel Suarez could win at the Charlotte ROVAL after winning at Sonoma. I think Daniel Suarez is gonna rise up to the occasion and get the job done in Charlotte. And I have a feeling this will be a race that all of us are gonna have a lot of hot takes about, and it's gonna be a real fun one for all the fans who are in attendance tomorrow in Charlotte, North Carolina. And tomorrow, be sure to join us for Grid Live wrap up 90 minutes after the NASCAR Cup Series race at the Charlotte ROVAL. And then Monday, Ben Snyder, Brandon Cross, and the gang will be back on the air for another edition of Grid Live Encore. Be sure to follow us on social media. Want to give another big thank you to our Patreon supporters, Colin, Mark, D-Shell, and Robin. Click the link to our below to our Patreon or buy me a coffee for a one-time donation. You can also use Public.com to invest in the stock market. Use the code GRIDnet to earn free stocks, and you can be sure to get started. Utilize the stock market for your own personal investment. And unfortunately, that's all we have for today. So for Joshua Burch and Matthew Bro, I'm Kobe Lambert from the Podium Finish. Thank you all for watching. Enjoy the races.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform Public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on Public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDnet for your free $5 to invest. Start investing and networking on Public.com.